A defense news correspondent is imprisoned in India. All of that and more today, June 23rd, 2023. Good morning, early birds. I'm Zamone Perez, and this is the Early Bird Brief, produced by Defense News and Military Times. We wanted to start today's episode with a story that is a bit more personal to our newsroom, and it comes at a time when Indian Prime Minister Narendra Modi visits the United States. A little more than a month ago, India's Central Bureau of Investigation arrested our colleague, Vivek Raghuvanshi, on charges of espionage. The Indian government has released minimal information on his arrest, and we have been unable to get into contact with Vivek. Modi's government has received large amounts of criticism from international groups for restricting media reporting and public protests. Human rights advocates are expected to protest Modi's visit to Washington, D.C. this week to highlight their concerns. Senior White House officials said President Joe Biden would not shy away from discussing those issues in private meetings during the week, but they would not detail the specific topics to be included. When asked whether Vivek's case would be mentioned, the official said only that, quote, a full range of issues will be on the table. White House officials are expected to announce a series of new defense partnerships with India as part of the visit. That includes joint production of new engines and new ship repair agreements between the countries. During a Pentagon briefing, I asked Air Force Brigadier General Pat Ryder about Vivek's arrest and press freedom as it relates to India and the United States military partnership.
So I'm not going to speak for India in terms of its own policies. Obviously, from a United States standpoint, as you just saw from the White House, we do place an emphasis on press freedom and the importance of engagement with press and a free and open press, free and independent press. In terms of our relationship with India, again, I think the world's two largest democracies, we have a lot to gain from working together in terms of preserving peace and stability and security in the region. And so going forward, that will continue to be our focus.
When I followed up, asking whether DoD would inquire about Vivek's situation, Ryder referred me to the State Department and said the United States would continue to, quote, highlight its views on a free and open press. Were he not in custody, Vivek would likely have covered those issues. Another important story, if you randomly received a smartwatch in the mail, do not turn it on. That is what investigators are saying after a string of smartwatches were shipped randomly to U.S. service members. That sent cybersecurity alarm bells ringing. The Department of the Army Criminal Investigation Division warned the watches may contain malware. That could potentially grant whoever sent the devices access to important data. But the issue could be a more harmless effort, a thing called brushing, which is used in e-commerce to boost a seller's ratings through fake orders and reviews. Investigators did not say exactly how many smartwatches were so far distributed. Troops that received a smartwatch unsolicited should not turn the device on and should instead report the matter to a counterintelligence or security official. Wearable tech and downloadable applications have long clashed with the national security ecosystem. Smartwatches and their software log personal info and location data, can record audio, and often lack sufficient means to validate users. The New York Times in 2018 reported that Strava, a fitness app that posts a map of user activity, did not know it had revealed locations and habits of military bases and personnel. In 2020, Bellingcat reported military and intelligence personnel could be tracked via Untapped, a beer rating social network. So you should all rate your beer the old-fashioned way, by carrier pigeon. Also on your radar for today, House Republicans advanced a measure to create a sea-launched cruise missile nuclear program, known as SLCM-N. The Armed Services Committee voted along party lines to add a provision that would create the cruise missile nuclear program of record in the 2024 National Defense Authorization Act. The Biden administration has wanted to scrap research on it. The White House did not request funding for it in the FY24 budget request. But Republicans teamed up with some Democrats last year to authorize $25 million in the FY23 defense authorization bill to continue SLCM-N research. The House's FY24 defense authorization bill would provide nearly $196 million for continued SLCM-N development. The committee voted down, along party lines, an amendment that would have allowed the Defense Secretary or National Nuclear Security Administrator to waive the establishment of a SLCM-N program. Republicans have cited that the current chairman of the Joint Chiefs, General Mark Milley, believed the armed forces needed the weapon. Former head of U.S. Strategic Command, Admiral Charles Richard, also backed it in a letter to the chairman of the House Armed Services Committee. Representative Adam Smith, the top Democrat on the Armed Services Committee, said the U.S. already has ballistic submarines in its fleet, as well as lower-yield nuclear options from the air. The authorization bill passed committee, paving the way for a full-floor vote next month. And now, here are some other stories that we're hearing chirps about. The U.S. Coast Guard said a debris field was found at the bottom of the ocean near the Titanic, where rescuers were searching for a missing submersible vessel. The National Guard is still thousands of troops short of meeting its end-strength personnel requirements for this fiscal year. Guard officials said eligibility requirements, a disinterest in military service among recruits who are eligible, and a competitive labor market hamper recruitment efforts. The Associated Press is reporting that the Coast Guard cutter Stratton sailed through the Taiwan Strait a day after Secretary of State Antony Blinken wrapped up a trip to Beijing. And on this day in history, in 1956, Gamal Abdel Nasser was elected the first president of Egypt. Nasser would eventually nationalize British and French industries in the country, including the Suez Canal. He created a one-party Arab Socialist Republic and would be propelled into popularity in the Arab world. That's it for us this morning. To get more top stories and breaking news, go to defensenews.com/EBB to subscribe to the Early Bird Brief newsletter. Please give us a like, rating, and comment wherever you get your podcasts, and be sure to follow us on social media at @defense_news and at Military Times. The Early Bird Brief is hosted and produced by me, Zimone Z. Perez. Today's episode features stories by Leo Shane III, Bryant Harris, and Colin Demarest. Our editor-in-chief is Mike Gruss. Have a great day.